Hello Year 12. This week you're going to be answering the question, was war communism the most successful Bolshevik economic policy? So let's start by thinking, what does this question actually want you to do? Well, it's asking for a comparison of the different Bolshevik economic policies, so state capitalism, war communism, and the NEP. It's asking you to compare the three and think which was the most successful. Now, there are two different ways of approaching this. Firstly, we could create 3 paragraphs on the different policies themselves. So, structure it by having a paragraph on war communism, state capitalism, and the NEP. Probably makes more sense to start off with state capitalism as the earliest chronologically. As long as you had a mini judgment at the end of each of those kind of thirds of the essay that said, and overall, I think this is or is not the most successful, it would be a sensible way to approach it. However, I think it's probably the approach more of a C-D candidate than an A star candidate. An A star candidate is going to look at this question and find that secret key word within it. So, was war communism the most successful Bolshevik economic policy? Is a really great question to pull some criteria out. So, which word would we be making criteria out of here? What criteria is it that we need? Hopefully you can see that we need to think about, what do we actually mean by successful? Because only by having criteria for successful can we then come to a judgment of which is the most successful. This criteria will allow us to compare the different policies and so come to that overall judgment. So I'd like you now to think about, what would your criteria for a successful economic policy be? Aim for 2 or 3 criteria. Here's some suggested criteria from me. You don't need to use it, but hopefully it gives you an idea of the sort of thing you should be thinking about. Well, if we're talking about an economic policy, surely one of the most obvious criteria for success is, does it actually bring about economic stability? If it does, it's a successful policy. However, we shouldn't just think in economic terms, because the economics of Russia, of every country, affects lots of different things. And one big thing that Lenin and the Bolsheviks really need to get at this period is popularity. They need to get rid of opposition, secure their regime. So, does that economic policy lead to opposition or support? That could be one of your criteria. Does it help to strengthen Bolshevik control? Does it achieve Bolshevik aims of that communist socialist society that they were hoping for? So, what you could do, instead of doing an essay split into thirds, state capitalism, war communism, NEP, is you could structure your essay by criteria. So have a third, for example, on economic stability, comparing the 3 within an economic stability paragraph. Then another paragraph on opposition and popularity, again comparing the 3 together within that paragraph. And then perhaps achieving Bolshevik aims and comparing the 3 within it. Having criteria as the backbone of your essay, guiding and structuring the essay, is the mark of an A star candidate. So if you really want to hit those highest grades, this is the way to approach it. Just a little guide there to help you think about how to structure a paragraph. Make sure you're using those point sentences, that you use the language of the question, returning to that at the end, and nugget knowledge. Okay, depth of knowledge is really important. You want to lend an air of expertise to your essay. Here's a example. Politically, the policy of war communism was very successful. So here in our point sentence, we've introduced the criteria we're talking about politically, and we've got our line of argument. War communism was successful. And just a quick word about introductions. So some of you've been struggling with what to include in an introduction. Here's a set of suggestions. Some of these are wrong. So just have a little look through. I'd like you to remove 5. 5 that I would not recommend for an introduction. What would you remove? Okay, so introduction should include criteria, introduce your line of argument, introduce the factors you will be discussing. It should be brief, but not too brief, okay? Middle. 7 lines long is probably enough. 4 lines, you're probably not going to have done your criteria, line of argument, and the factors you're going to discuss. So somewhere between 4 and 15, probably about 7 lines. But of course, that does depend on the size of your handwriting. As long as you've got criteria, line of argument, and factors to be discussed, that's it. Do not put any really specific knowledge in there. Save that for later. Right, well, good luck with the essay. Look forward to marking it.